Wow. Hey, much love and respect. Pura vida, mi gente. Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you guys making the time to be here in your Wednesday night or day, depending on where you are in the world. Really appreciate you guys supporting, making the time, motivated to learn. It motivates me. Yeah, wow. I see everybody in the live chat. Appreciate you guys tuning in live. We're gonna get into some pretty deep stuff. Had this book here for a while. We kind of read from it way back in my series, Untold Ancient American Truth. You know, this was like, what, like 5, 6 years ago now? Yeah. Yeah, Gostos Le Plongeon. You already know, man. You already know. So we only read the preface of that book. And you know what? I never actually got to the whole book, the rest of the book. Like, we never really got into it. And I forgot about it. And we've done so many other videos and other books. And I just, haven't got to it. And I've been wanting to get back into it. And I just kept forgetting. And, sometimes I run into it again. I'm like, oh, yeah, I got to read this book. So I'm like, let me just do it. Let's just get it over with. Let's see what we can find in this book. I'm going to be honest with you. I've only read the preface. And the preface is really good. So kind of setting the mood and tone for the book and what the author is trying to achieve. It's what he's trying to say. Okay, so welcome. We got 50 people so far, supposedly. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for being here. I hope you guys enjoy. This is most likely going to be a couple parts. There's about 200 pages, this book. So we'll see how far we can get today. Yeah, we'll see how far we can get today. So we're going to go ahead and get it like it's the first time, about 10 minutes of the preface, just to read what he has to say in the book, and then we'll go ahead and start reading from the main body of the book. All right. Welcome. Enjoy. Grab the popcorn. Settle down. Chill. Enjoy the reading. Enjoy the vibes. Share with the community. All right. Wow. Please let me know if the music is ever too loud. All right, guys? Please let me know about that. Oh, wow. I see how excited you guys are. Makes me excited. Yeah. Awesome blossom. And dodge the hijacks, of course. We're going to dodge the hijacks always. And pull out the babies. Pull out the babies. Pull out the nuggets. And it's kind of cool that we waited all this time and now we're going to read it, because now we have a better understanding of so-called Egypt, so-called Greece, so-called Chaldea, and so-called India, right? So let's go ahead and get started. Oops.
All right, so I'm in this book now. It's called The Sacred Mysteries Among the Mayas and the Quiches, 11,500 years ago. All right? Yes, 11,500 years ago. Their relation to the sacred mysteries of Egypt, Greece, Chaldea, and India. It says here Freemasonry in times anterior to the Temple of Solomon. Illustrated by Augustus Le Plongeon. Teachings. This book is from 1886. The forests of Yucatan and Central America are today for the majority of the people of the United States, even those who call themselves scientific and well-informed, as much as terra incognita, meaning it's unknown to them. All right, he's trying to say they don't really know anything about it, and this is during his time, right? As America was to the inhabitants of Europe before its discovery by Cristobal Colon in 1498, when for the first time he came in sight of the northern coast of South America, and navigated along it from the mouth of the river Orinoco to Porto Cabello in the Golfo Triste. If you haven't persuaded the books of J.L. Stevens, Norman, and other tourists who have hurriedly visited the ruins of the ancient cities that lie hidden in the depths of those forests, have a vague idea that there exist the remains of stone houses built some time or other before the discovery aver authoritatively that their builders were but little removed from the state of savagism, and that none of their handwork is worth the attention of the students of our age. Their civilization, they confidently say, was at best very crude. They were ignorant of art of writing, and the scanty records of their history chronicled on their skins and pictorial representations are well nigh unintelligible. They had no sciences, no mental culture or intellectual development. They were in fact a race whose intelligence was, for the most part, of lower order. From what they did, nothing is to be learned, and that has any direct bearing on the progress of civilization. In no wise can they be compared with the Egyptians or the Chaldees, much less with the Greeks or Romans. It is not, therefore, worth our while to spend time and money and researches among the ruins of their cities. It is to Greece, it is to Egypt, to Chaldea, that Americans must go in order to make new discoveries. In those countries must be established schools for study of Greek or Egyptian or Chaldean archaeology, and American schools have been established at Athens and Alexandria, and expeditions sent to Syria, to the shores of the Euphrates. All right, so he's saying this is what the scholars were saying. This is what the scholars were saying when they were going in there. There was, even though they went in there and found things, and a lot of these probably are Freemasons and stuff, and they kept it to themselves and just said, there's nothing there to find. There's nothing there good. That's what he's saying. But look what he's going to say right now. But the European scientists who for many years past have explored those old fields in order to obtain relics to fill the shelves of the museums of their capitals and turned up the soil of the Orient in search of archaeological treasures, now look to the Western continent in quest of the origin of those ancient civilizations. Where are they looking now? He's letting you know this is back in the 1800s, right? Because we're going to read Graham Hancock a little bit later, letting us know the same thing. In modern times, they're doing the same thing, right? Because what happened? They couldn't find anything over on their side. So what did they start doing? Now they look to the Western continent in quest of the origin of those ancient civilizations, which they have been unable to find in the countries where they once flourished. They haven't been able to find any of these ancient monuments or things mentioned like in the Bible or anything like that. They haven't been able to find them over there because they're looking at the wrong side. And they look with that reverence which true learning begets on those ancient American temples and palaces that are object of contempt for some modern American scientists. Thus we see established in Paris the Société des Americanistes, whose sole object is the study of all things pertaining to ancient American civilization. That society, composed of students, spares no effort to obtain knowledge, respecting the architecture, the science, the arts, the language, and the civilization of the people who inhabited in remote ages the various countries of this Western continent. A premium of 25,000 francs has been offered for the discovery of an alphabet or key to the inscriptions carved on the walls of the monuments in Yucatan and Central America. M. Desiree Charnay has been sent to obtain molds of the sculptures and other precious relics that lie hidden and lost in the recesses of the Central American forest. Casts have been made from such squeezes as he obtained. These casts adorn the Trocadero Museum at Paris. Duplicates of the same having been presented to the Smithsonian Institute at Washington by Mr. Pierre Lorillard of New York. This gentleman is the only American who has ever contributed. With his wealth and influence, he has spent $25,000 in expeditions for the recovery of facts and objects that may throw light on the ancient history of America. Then again, we have in Europe the International Congress des Americanistes, that convenes every 4 years in one of the capitals of Europe for the purpose of collecting all new data obtained in the interval concerning ancient American civilization. So you see, they have these special societies just for this, so they can know what's coming out of America. In England, at Cambridge, there is in the university a large building specially dedicated to Central American archaeology. All right. There are to be seen, as I am informed by General Sir Henry Lefroy, the cast and photographs obtained by Mr. Maudslay, a wealthy gentleman who was devoted his time and wealth to the work of obtaining facsimiles in plaster and photographs of the ancient monuments of Honduras and Guatemala. Facsimiles are exact copies of the original. 3 years ago, I had a cast made from some of the stereotype molds made by me of sculpture at Uxmal and offered them for exhibition in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in Central Park. They have been placed in the cellar, out of the way, for want of space against the wall. That's what they told him. The public has never seen them. I once remonstrated with one of the trustees and proposed to sell the museum a copy of the collection of fresco paintings from Chichen Itza, last remnants of ancient American art. The answer of the gentleman was no. Those things are not appreciated. They are looked upon as of no value. Nevertheless, some of the illustrations in this book are photographs of the same despised cast and mural paintings. All right, so he's going to show you what they were saying has no value. During the last lecturing season, I offered to several literary, scientific, and historical societies to give lectures illustrated with views made by us of the monuments and enlarged with the stereopticon. In every instance, I received the same answer. Our people are not interested in such a subject. What? Americans not interested in American antiquities? That's what I'm saying. In ancient American history? In ancient American civilization? All right, so you see how they were purposely ignoring these people that were going and doing this research and finding these things, right? Not all of them were down with those same Smithsonians and all that, and the museum people and all that. All right, some of them actually, financed their own expeditions and went there, and they had connections, they're Freemasons and all that, but, they're trying to let them know what's over there. Ms. Leplojon and I have written 2 works of Yucatan. One is Monuments of Mayaks and Their Historical Teachings. The other, Yucatan, its ancient palaces and modern cities, life and customs of the aborigines. We have offered them to several publishing houses, but the same answer has been given by all. There is no money in the publication of such books. American readers do not care for this subject. All right, you hear all this? And it was true, people don't care. And a lot of people right now still don't care, right? Notwithstanding such rebuffs, I made up my mind to present to American readers some of the historical facts that have been brought to light by deciphering the bas reliefs and mural inscriptions by means of the ancient hieratic Maya alphabet discovered by me. All right, and check this out. This is a big one right here. Let me just show you this one. All right, so you got on one side it says, on the left, it says ancient Maya hieratic alphabet according to mural inscriptions. And to the right is Egyptian hieratic alphabet according to Messrs. Champollion, Lejeune, de Brunsen. All right. So they're talking about, at least the Egyptian ones, they're verified from primary sources that they're using at that time. And this is what he's finding and what they're finding in the Americas on the left. And you can see the resemblances, right? Yeah, so you got this one right here, and then you got the thing right here. You got like a little box right here, another box right here. Right. See this one, then this one as well over here. Basically the same, see that? All right, you got this right here. 2 of them, right? You got similar. All right, you got this one right here, and so on, right? You can see, well, this one looks like this one, or at least this one, right? And water, the line, look at that. All right, square. Do this. You got a triangle here, and you got this one and this one. Just backwards. Look at that. Same. Kind of like the same. All right. Then you got the lines. All right. So yeah, it has a lot of similar. You see the symbols here, and the letter that it associates to, supposedly. All right. We're just talking about. Are we just talking about the ancient pictograph, the ancient Ibarias? All right. Really civilized tool. In this small book, which two of the most prominent firms in New York have positively refused to publish, believing it to be a bad speculation, I present only such facts as can be proved by the works of well-known writers, ancient and modern, and by the inscriptions carved on stone by the Maya learned men and historians. It is for you, reader. It is for you. Talking to you, the reader, right? We're not talking about you believing anybody else. Talking to you personally. You verify the information. You're listening right now. Don't listen to other people, what they're telling you. They're not showing you any sources, right? This is for you, reader, to judge if they are worthy your consideration, all right? So letting you know what's been going on, how he's had trouble, getting this out there, right, to these historians and these museums, and having, this awareness come about, like he wants to spread, he wants to really people to focus on what was here, the civilizations that were here, because it's showing him that it's actually very ancient, right?
Yeah. So that was the preface, guys. That was me about 5-6 years ago. Or however long that was. I can't even remember. So we're gonna get into the main body of the book now. But you saw the little graph he was showing you, right? With the lettering, the hieroglyphics, comparing the Mayas with the Egyptian, right? It's the same, exact same. I've shown many examples of this in different videos. And what he was saying about how they didn't want to publish his books, they were giving him trouble. People didn't really care to look into the Americas. And literally, guys, that's still happening. All over YouTube, you see, oh, the great African empire, this African, there's not many talking about ancient America and its relation to the old world, right? So we're going to get into, again, the main body of the book. Again, the sacred mysteries among the Mayas and the Quiches. Quiches. Quiche. Quiches. Quiche. Quiches. They said that's an African name. Huh. There are authors who attribute the origin of modern Freemasonry to the followers of Pythagoras, because some of the speculations of that philosopher concerning the meaning of the numbers are to be found in the esoteric doctrines taught in the Masonic lodges. Others on account of the Christian symbols that have been incorporated in the decoration of things pertaining to Masonry, following the Swedish system, say that the Essenes and first Christians founded it. Others again make it originate in the building of Solomon's temple. That's kind of like the foundation of Freemasonry. Many Jewish names, emblems, and legends, so-called Jewish, right? Israelite, Hebrew, taken from the Bible, having found their way into the rites of initiation to several degrees. Others still make it go back to Adam. Ask them why, they do not know. While not a few, and I among them, earnestly believe that Masonry existed before Adam was created. Interesting. What does he mean by that, right? Let's continue reading. I believe it because I am convinced that this pretended ancestor of man is a myth, and has never existed. The first man. So maybe he's not down with the whole Bible story. Thomas Paine and those of his school say that the Druids were the fathers of the craft, they being worshippers of the sun, moon, and stars. Dodge the hijack. Who's the so-called Druids? And these jewels of the firmament being represented on the ceilings of the Masonic lodges. Dance of Valoisum speaks of Herculaneum as its birthplace because of the many similarities that existed between the collegia of the Romans and the lodges of the operative Masons of the Middle Ages. Michael Andrew Ramsay, a Scotch gentleman, in a discourse delivered in Paris in 1740, suggested the possibility of the fraternity having its origin in the time of the Crusades among the Knight Templars, and he explains it in this way. The Pope Clement V and Philippe le Bel, King of France, fearing the power of the Templars and coveting their immense wealth, resolved to destroy the order. When in 1308 Jacques de Molay, then Grand Master of the order, was preparing an expedition to avenge the wrongs and disasters suffered by the Christians in the East, the Pope, who was the only power to which, in the spiritual, the Templars owed allegiance, enticed him to France. On his arrival, he was received with every mark of friendship, but soon after, the king caused him to be arrested, together with some of the other dignitaries, all right? Accusing them of the most heinous crimes, imputing to them the secret rites of their initiation, by order of the Archbishop of Sens and his provincial council, Jacques de Molay, Guy of Auvergne, and several other officers of the order were burned alive on March 18th, 1314. The Pope, by a bull, right, one of those papal bulls, right? And that's like law, right? When Vatican Pope puts out a bull, that's like law. You got to follow it, wherever they conquer, right? So dated on the 2nd of April and published on the 2nd of May, 1312, that he issued on his own responsibility the Council of Vienne and Dauphine, being adverse to hasty measures, declared the order abolished throughout the world. The execution of the Grand Master and his companions gave the coup de grace to the order. Some of the knights who had escaped to Portugal, continued the order. They assumed the title of Knights of Christ, which it bears to this day, but it never recovered its former prestige and power. Jacques de Molay, before dying, had appointed Johann Marcus Larmenio as his successor to the office of Grand Master. The knights who fleeing from the persecution had taken refuge in Scotland at the court of King Robert Bruce, right? Refused to recognize his authority and pretending to reestablish the order of the temple under the allegory and title of architects protected by the king, laid the foundation of the order of free and accepted Masons of the Scottish Rite in 1314. The new society soon forgot the meaning of the execratory oath that the members were obliged to take at their initiation. The death of Clement V, of Philippe le Bel, of the accusers and enemies of Jacques de Molay, and the other knights who had been executed, having removed the object of their vengeance, still they continued to decorate their lodges with tokens commemorative of the death of the Grand Master, to impose all new members the obligation of avenging it, which they signified by striking with an unsheathed dagger at unseen beings, his supposed murderers, although all their efforts were now directed to the restoration of the honor of their association. This allegory is well known to the Knights of Kadosh. A century had scarcely elapsed when this idea also was abandoned. The founders and their disciples having passed away, their successors saw only allegories and the symbols of the order, and the extensive use of words and text from the Bible was then introduced. Of their work, but little is positively known until the reign of Charles I of England, when their mysterious initiations began to attract attention. The enemies of Cromwell and the Republic, having in view the re-establishment of the monarchy, created the degree of Grand Master to prepare the minds of the Masons for that event. King William III was initiated. Masonry, says Preston, was very much neglected as early as the reign of James II, and even after this period it made but slow progress until 1714, when King George I ascended the throne. 3 years later, in February 1717, the first Grand Lodge was established in London. A committee from the 4 lodges then existing in that city met at the Tavern of the apple tree, and nominated Anthony Sayer, who was elected Grand Master on the 24th of the following June, day of St. John the Baptist, that for this reason was selected as patron of the order. This origin of the craft is credited by many of the best authorities on the subject. They found their opinion on the fact that many of the ceremonies practiced by the architects are still observed among the Masons, and that the Grand Lodge preserved with the spirit of the ancient brotherhood its fundamental laws. There are others, however, who likewise claim to be well informed, that pretend it did not originate in any order of chivalry, but in the building fraternities of the Middle Ages. Yeah, so, just reading this, I just reminded, a lot of so-called Freemasons of today, they might not want me to be reading these kind of books. They feel like, oh, that's only for us, man. You ain't initiated, man. Be the origin what it may, the fact is that after the establishment of the Grand Lodge at Apple Tree Tavern, Masonry spread over Europe at a rapid rate, notwithstanding the bitter opposition of the Church of Rome that fulminated against it in its most terrible anathemas as early as 1738 at the instigation of the Inquisition. Pope Clement XII, on the 28th of April of that year, caused a prohibitory bull to be issued against Freemasonry, entitled In Eminenti, in which he excommunicated all Masons. And the Cardinal Vicar of Rome, by edict in the name of the High Priest of the God of Peace and Mercy, decreed the penalty of death against them in 1739. And on May 18, 1751, Pope Benedict the 14th renewed the bull of Clement the 12th by another beginning with these words, Providas Romanorum Pontificum. The order was introduced in France in 1725. On the 14th of September 1732, all Masonic associations were prohibited by a decree of the Chamber of Police of the Châtelet of Paris. In 1727, Lord Coleraine founded a lodge in Gibraltar. And in the succeeding year in Madrid, in the capital of Spain, the stronghold of the Inquisition. But in 1740, in consequence of the bull of Clement XII, King Philip V of Spain promulgated an ordinance against the Masons in his kingdom, many of whom were arrested and sent to the galleys. The inquisitors took advantage of the opportunity to persecute the members of a lodge they discovered in Madrid. They caused them to be loaded with chains, to be obliged to row in the galleys without other retribution than scanty rations of victuals of the poorest quality, but an abundant supply of bastinate. Fernando VI renewed the ordinance on July 2nd, 1751, making Masonry high treason. The Brotherhood made its appearance in Ireland in 1730. It is not positively known if it existed in the country before that time. I'm sure it probably did, In 1732, it crossed the Atlantic and was imported in America, right? So this is the story they tell us, right? In that year, a lodge was held in Tun Tavern in Philadelphia. Philadelphia, huh? And it says there, I don't know what they're trying to say, the Brotherhood, I think, having previously met in Boston, right? Boston? Isn't that where the Prince Hall Masonry also was founded? Which may be regarded as the birthplace of American Freemasonry. Uh-oh. Believe it or not, I grew up in Boston, so Boston is called the hub. A lot of first in America when it comes to modern times, right? Started there, like first schools, first police station, first this, first that. So it makes sense. That's why they call it the hub. And then spread, to other states. Henry Price was the first provincial Grand Master, appointed by the Grand Lodge of England on April 30th, 1733. The same year witnessed its establishment in various cities of Italy. In 1735, the Grand Duke of Francis of Lorraine was initiated. He protected the Masons, and the craft flourished in Italy until 1737, when Juan Gaston of Medicis, the Medicis, right? These are black folks. The Medicis, most of them described as swarthy people. We got even images of them as swarthy people. Grand Duke of Tuscany issued a decree of prohibition against it. Soon after his death, which occurred the same year, the lodges which had been closed were reopened. It was not long, however, before they were denounced to the Pope Clement XII, who issued his bull of the 28th of April, 1738, and sent an inquisitor to Florence, who caused various members of the society to be cast into dungeons. They were set at liberty as soon as Francis of Lorraine became Grand Duke of Tuscany. He not only protected the Masons, but founded lodges in Florence and other places in his estates. All right. So, guys, I know a lot of you know that it didn't just start in the 1700s in the Americas, right? Like, this is where it's actually started. Like, we got videos about ancient America and the whole symbolism of Freemasonry and all that. But he's kind of telling the story of what people are told. We also know, though, that even before the 1700s, many of these colonists were Freemasons, and they were practicing it. They were already, maybe they didn't have lodges like that, but they were already. So, he not only protected, okay, I got that. In 1735, a lodge was established in Lisbon, the capital of Portugal. It will be remembered that some of the Knights Templars, under the title of Knights of Christ, had kept alive the ancient order in that country, in defiance of the Pope's thunderbolts. Among the Masons initiated in England were a great many Germans as early as 1730. These seem to have met occasionally in traveling in Germany, or to have corresponded with each other. But no lodge is known to have existed previous to the year 1737, when one without name was established in Hamburg, although Grand Master Lord Strathmore had authorized in 1733 11 gentlemen and brothers to open one. In 1740, B. Putman of the Hamburg Lodge received a patent of provincial Grand Master from England, and the lodge assumed the title of Absalom. King Frederick II denominated the Great while still Crown Prince had been initiated, and from the time of his initiation took great interest in the welfare of the Brotherhood. Crowned King of Prussia, he continued to give it his support, assuming the title of Great Master Universal and Conservator of the most ancient and most respectable association of ancient Freemasons or architects of Scotland. Masonry enjoyed under his reign such consideration that many German princes, following his example, were initiated, and so many of the nobility joined. The society that too belonged to it came to be regarded as a mark of nobility and high breeding. Notwithstanding his multifarious state duties and the many wars that took place during his reign, which demanded his constant attention, he found time to frame a constitution to cement together again the order that at one time, owing to the external persecutions of the one hand to internal dissensions, suscitated by the incorporation to it of the Rosicrucians, and still more that of the Illuminati, on the other, seemed on the eve of falling asunder. That constitution, signed by him in his palace at Berlin on the 1st of May, 1786, saved Freemasonry from annihilation in Germany. For many regarding it with suspicion, attacked and persecuted it. The Catholics because it came from Protestant England. The Protestant clergy looked upon it as hostile to Christianity because of the teachings and symbols altogether Catholic of the 18th degree. Catholic of the 18th degree, symbols, Hermetics, those of Rosa Cruz, whose motto, we have the happiness of being in the pacific unity of the sacred numbers. and in the name of the Holy and Indivisible Trinity, bespeaks its Jesuit origin. The people believe in the accusation of witchcraft and sorcery made against it by its enemies because of the veil of secrecy thrown over their meetings. All right. Authors have endeavored to show that modern Freemasonry is not derived from the mysteries of the ancients. J.G. Findell, an advocate of this opinion, says, seeing that the ancient symbolical marks and ceremonials in the lodges bear a very striking resemblance to those of the mysteries of the ancients, some have allowed themselves to be deceived and led others astray, imagining they can trace back the history of the craft into the cloudy mists of antiquity. Instead of endeavoring to ascertain how and when these ceremonies were introduced into our present system, they have taken it for granted that they were derived from the religious mysteries of the ancients. Now, if we merely consider the tokens of recognition, the passwords and secret words, the decorations of the lodges, according to the degrees into which modern masonry is divided, tokens, words, and decorations nearly all taken from the Bible and symbolical of events, real or imaginary, some of which are said to have taken place in comparatively modern times, after the decline and final discontinuance of the ancient mysteries in consequence of the spread of Christianity, others having occurred in the early days of the Christian era, others at the time of the building of Solomon's temple, all of which had certainly nothing to do with the religious mysteries of Egypt, Chaldea, Greece, Etruria, etc., that were instituted ages before the pretended occurrence of those events, then we may positively affirm it is not derived from these. But if, on the other hand, we observe, and it is difficult to overlook it, that these symbols are precisely the same that we find in the temples of Egypt, Chaldea, what Chaldea? India, and Central America. Whatever may have been the esoteric meaning given to them by the initiated of those countries, we are bound to admit that a link exists between the ancient mysteries and Freemasonry. It is for us to try to discover when that link was riveted and by whom. If the theory of Chevalier Ramsay be true, that is, if modern masonry had its beginning in the Society of Architects founded in Scotland under the protection of King Robert Bruce, and the title of Ancient and Accepted Masons of the Scottish Rite seems to favor that opinion, then we may trace its origin to the Order of Knight Templars, and through them to the ancient mysteries practiced in the East from times immemorial. It is well known that one of the charges made against Jacques de Molay and his associates by their accusers was that they used secret rites in their initiations. Their 4 oaths were well known, but not their rites of initiation. What were they? We are told that the aim of the Society of Architects was to perpetuate the ancient order of the temple. It is therefore to be presumed that they continue to observe the rites and ceremonies practiced in the chapters of the Templars, to use them at the initiations of members into the new society, to whom they communicated the intimate meaning of their symbols. Were these rites analogous to those observed in the initiations to the symbolical degrees? These degrees were, it must be remembered, the only ones originally recognized by the Brotherhood, as there are but 3 in the Society of Jesus: the Neophytes, the Coadjutors, and the Preface, as there were anciently among the priests of the temples of Egypt, right? What Egypt, right? America, who indeed considered it a great honor to be judged worthy of admission to the 3rd degree. That is, to the participation in the greater mysteries. Was their explanation of the symbols similar to that taught in Masonic lodges? The Templars were accused as Masons are today, by the Roman Church, since it has lost its hold and influence on the association of the crime of heresy, and many Masons have suffered death by being burnt alive as heretics. From whom did the Templars receive those symbols and their esoteric meaning, in which we plainly trace the doctrine of Pythagoras? No doubt from the Christians who, like the Emperor Julian, the Bishop Synesius, Clement of Alexandria, and many other pagan philosophers who had been initiated to the mysteries by the priests of Egypt before being converted to Christianity. In that case, the connection of modern Masonry with the ancient religious mysteries of Egypt, consequently with those of Greece and Samothracia, is easily traced, and the resemblance of the symbolical marks and ceremonies of Masonic lodges with those of mysteries naturally accounted for. Thus it is that many Masonic authors may have been led to trace the origin of the craft to followers of Pythagoras and others to the Essenes and first Christians. All right, now real quick, guys, let me just try to get this ancient. Just 1 second, guys. Okay. I just want to read this real quick and remind everybody what we have read before we continue reading. I just want to make something clear what their own people say, right? We've already read this. We're going to go back to the other book. Let's just read this real quick, right? We're talking about the origin, right? In this book, Ancient Mystic Oriental Masonry, its teachings, rules, laws, and present usages, which govern the order at the present day, True Masonry and the Universal Brotherhood of Man are one, by Dr. R. Swinburne Clymer, author of the Rosicrucians, their teachings, the philosophy of fire, etc. All right. And this is, I forget the year. This was a pretty old book too. Somebody even told me, you know, a friend, he says that somebody he knows, which is a so-called Freemason, that this book right here is given to people who are 14 degrees and up, not to anybody under those degrees, okay? So just real quick, I just want to get to a specific part. Here we go. Now, it says here, the cradle of symbolism used in all Masonry is placed by many of the best authorities in that country which they believe was first inhabited. Example, the plateau of Tartary, and from there transmitted to this generation by the sages of India, Persia, Ethiopia, and Egypt. But listen to what he says. Listen to what they say here. We are not indebted to either ancient Egypt for either religion or Masonry, but to America. But to America. 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 Why should correlate with what Le Plajon is about to say? I don't even know. I just feel like he's going to say it. I haven't read the other book, guys. It is a fact. Listen. It is a fact that at Memphis, Egypt, in the pyramids, under the guidance of the kings, what Memphis, Egypt, right? We got a Memphis over here, right next to our great river, or our own Nile, Mississippi, right? Under the guidance of the kings, the mystic rites of Masonry were worked many thousands of years ago. But at that time, Egypt, listen, but at that time, Egypt and the continent of America were one and the same, okay? Egypt is America. So when you're saying these ancient pagan philosophers were initiated by the Egyptian priests, what Egyptian priests? We're talking about American people here. All right? Because what they're telling you themselves right here from the horse's mouth, that Egypt and the continent of America were one and the same in America. Rediscovered, not founded, rediscovered, invaded. They rediscovered the old world, guys, in the 15th century and repopulated. Starts the hijack. There was already millions of people here. In the 17th was recovered Egypt. So what happened when they got here? What did they do? Listen, pay attention. Pay attention. What happened? They recovered Egypt, the real Egypt. The real Egypt. Shout out to UBTB. He got a whole series, America's Egypt. Egypt is America. And we got so many videos on that as well, proving it. Okay? And what else was recovered? The Promised Land. The Promised Land. All right? Was recovered the Promised Land. Or the land of the constellation of the eagle. Okay? No matter how numerous or complicated the works of a lock may be, if but the right key be applied, the Great Pyramid proves to be the long-sought key to the mysteries of once a mythology and of the great world religions. All right? Especially interesting is it to Americans in this year of Columbian celebration of the 400th anniversary. All right, so that's when they wrote this book, right? And I have one more thing I want to read here, I think. Let's see. There we go. All right. It says, so, secondly, with the consequent wrecking of the continent of America, what happened? Something happened here, guys. When the globe became involved in the consequences of the disorder of the skies, America, listen to this, okay? We ain't gonna keep repeating this mad times. How many people gotta tell you, America, known to the mystics as Atlantis, yeah, I'm speaking loud so you can hear me. Atlantis is America. A lot of you still trying to debate, and you guys have no real research. You just biased. Don't understand where these myths are coming from. America, to these high degree so-called Masons or mystics, was known as Atlantis, okay? Was known as Atlantis, was known as Atlantis. I'm gonna repeat a couple times. America was known as Atlantis. America was known as Atlantis. America was known as Atlantis, all right? So stop trying to come over here and trying to debate. You have no understanding or research. When this ruin befell was the seat of the greatest empire. America was the seat of the greatest empire that has ever existed. And its irresistible armies were terrorizing all Europe and Asia. Yeah, we went over there, invaded, colonized, terrorizing Europe and Asia, and North Africa, Libya, right? Study of the American constellations, Scorpio, Sagittarius, and Capricornus, revealed the immemorial antiquity of the name America and the significance of the arms of the United States. The fact once recognized that it is impossible to separate the eagle from America. The land shadowed with wings of Isaiah, over which accordingly appeared two grand eagles, the red swan flying down the Milky Way, and the winged steeds, Pegasus and Icelus, all the wings known to astronomy, without taking the bear from Russia, Perseus from Persia, and a flood of light is poured upon the history and mythology, and where heretofore much has been vague and inscrutable, now we are able at least to see men as trees walking. All right, that's big right there. We see men as trees. Pat yourself on the back. When following the course of the constellations, those immovably and perpetually fastened upon America are reached. Remember, we read a whole book, researches into the lost histories of America, how he connected all these zodiacs to America, places, and people, and the constellations and all these mythological stories. When they're talking about these zodiacs, they were talking about America. Again, they're saying the same thing here. When following the course of the constellations, those immovably and perpetually fastened upon America are reached, it will appear that while all that is sublime in the historic past centers upon so-called Egypt, listen, all that is sublime in the prehistoric past centers upon America, Atlantis, America, Atlantis. And as the curtain which has hitherto concealed the prehistoric connection between the peoples of ancient Egypt and of America, is lifted, it will be seen that until everybody gets the real history, until that is lifted, that veil it will be seen that the people of the eagle on the Nile being descended, what? The people where? Of the Nile of Egypt, what? Being descended from the original people of the eagle on this continent, on this land, guys, where you are right now in America. They descend from us. The twain are one. And that prehistoric America was, again, that prehistoric America was the original Egypt or Eagle land prior to the mighty dispensation. All right? If you don't believe me, well, hear from the horse's mouth, right? In the days of Peleg, right? In the days of Peleg, right? When the lands were separated and the people were separated, right? Peleg, the son of Eber, right? The brother of Joktan, Yucatan, the brother of Joktan, Yucatan, Katan, Kate, Yucatan, Katan, Kate. Shout out to Drop. When the earth was divided and the great globe itself was nearly rent asunder. All right? We're getting mad drop right now, guys. We're getting like it's the first time. We've gone over this so many times, but people seem to forget. People seem to be 8, 7, 6, 5 years late to the research. Says Agassiz. Who's Agassiz? He's talking about Louis Agassiz, right? The most famous geologist, the one you have to study when you take geology in class as part of your curriculum. You got to read his book, Geological Schedules. That's what he's about to quote right now. I'm going to remind you, we're going to get it like the first time again. What did Agassiz says, the most famous geologist? Firstborn among the continents, America. Firstborn among the continents, America has been falsely denominated the New World. It has been falsely denominated the New World. Body bag for the illusion. Shout out to Drop, yo. Hers was the first dry land lifted out of the waters, just like the Maya said, right? Mayak, the first land lifted out of the waters. Hers was the first shore washed by the ocean that enveloped all the earth besides. And while Europe was above the sea, America, Atlantis, right? This is the same thing, already stretched in an unbroken line of land from Nova Scotia to the far west. All right? Now, this is when they add their hijack. They always want to say people came here. So he says America was evidently peopled from the old continent. This is the old continent. So when we talk about these people got mad knowledge and degrees, we got way more degrees than that now, guys. We know the truth. We know the truth, right? This is the true old world. And that's it. I just wanted to read this real quick. Talking about the history of Freemasonry, going back to the other book, right? Sacred Mysteries among the Mayas and the Quiche, and their relations to ancient Egypt, so-called Greece, so-called Chaldea, so-called India, and Freemasonry, anterior to the times of the Temple of Solomon, right? That's the name of this book we're reading. Before we went to that other one real quick, we're coming right back, all right? We clear? Are we clear now, right? We clear? Can we continue reading this book? I know a lot of you were having like cringing, like, this guy's like, he's trying to say we didn't have Freemasonry. Oh, we know where Freemasonry started. We're going to continue, right? So he was saying how, where does this all come start? Where did the Pythagoras, where did they get all this Freemasonry symbols and initiations and all this stuff? That's where we left off, right? We're going to continue. Cross in his work was endeavored to prove that Masonry originated in the associations of operative Masons that in the Middle Ages traveled through Europe, and by whom the cathedrals, monasteries, and castles were built. Listen, whose fundamental laws, traditions, customs, and tools are now used in the largest and figurative sense. Let's try to stay on topic in the chat, guys, in the live chat. I know if you're new, you might not be used to me saying that and trying to make sure you guys stay on topic. This is very important reading right here. I know it may seem esoteric or maybe, hey, this is not my thing, Kurimeo, but trust me. They turned everything into darkness They started using the knowledge for something else. These associations may have sprung from the building corporations of the Romans. If so, we have a connection link between the lodges of the Middle Ages and the mysteries of the ancients. The initiates of the architectural collegia of the Romans did not call themselves brothers. This is a title that came into use only when the Christian Masonic fraternities adopted it. They styled themselves collega or incorporatus. They worked in buildings apart or in secluded rooms, and the constitution of Masonic lodges, so far as the officers, their titles and duties, and the symbols are concerned, is so similar to theirs that one might be inclined to believe that the early Masons imitated the Roman collegia. What Romans? So-called Romans, so-called Greeks, so-called Greece. This theory is not without semblance of plausibility. Rome, during several centuries, held sway over Gaul and Britain. Roman colonists settled in various parts of those countries. With their language and customs, they imported many of their institutions and associations. That of the builders or collegia, as it manifests from the remains still existent of the magnificent roads and edifices of various kinds constructed by them. The college held their lodges wherever they established themselves, no doubt initiated new members. In the course of time, when those countries freed themselves from the yoke of Rome, these societies of builders became the associations of the itinerant operative masons, which inherited the symbols, tokens, and passwords of the collegia. These, in all probability, had received them either from the Chaldean magicians, from Ireland, so-called Druids. Who's the Chaldeans? Who's these Picts? Who's these Basque? Who flocked Rome at the beginning of the Christian era, when the progress of philosophical incredulity had shaken the confidence and legal divination, or from some of the priests of inferior order, all initiated to part of the lesser mysteries that, when the sacerdotal class, having lost in majesty, power, and wealth, in order to preserve whole its numerous hierarchy, repaired to the capital of the world to escape misery by levying contributions on the credulity and superstition of the people. That's what I'm talking about, DJ Sepe. What Rome? You mean Rhoda? In Arizona? What you talking about, man? So remember, we just came from that other book letting us know already Freemasonry started here. We brought that over here. So he's about to probably going to get to that. So he's trying to tell the whole story. Where's it coming from? They probably got it from here. Probably got it from there, huh? Chaldean, huh? What Chaldean? Chaldean? Chaldean, Caledonia? Chaledonia? Magicians. Weren't Druids magicians too? Guys, if you're not understanding what I'm saying about Chaldean Ireland, you have to catch up on the videos. You know, Ireland Ur of the Chaldees series, okay? This is a high degree drop right here, right? And a lot of so-called Masons don't even know this stuff. They stay at 3 degrees. They're learning right now with us. They're like, damn, how do they know all this stuff, man? They shouldn't be reading this, man. How come I don't know this stuff, man? Yeah. So they probably got these from the Chaldean magicians who flocked to Rome at the beginning of the Christian era, huh? Probably. The Christian church on the one hand, the Roman emperors on the other, fearing the influence of those magicians and priests, persecuted them even to death. These learned and wise men formed secret societies to preserve and transmit their knowledge. These societies lasted during the Middle Ages. The Rosicrucians, the Tergists among them, Leibniz, one of the greatest men of science that ever lived, who died in Hanover in 1716 at the age of 70 years, became a member of one of these societies, and there received an instruction he had vainly sought elsewhere. Were there mysterious meetings, remnants of the ancient learned initiations? Everything tends to make us suspected, sorry. The trials and examinations to which those who applied for initiation were obliged to submit, the nature of the secrets they possessed, the manner in which they were preserved. In these again may be found an explanation of why so many of the Pythagorean doctrines made their way into Masonry. Sorry about that, guys. Got a little interruption. Of the ceremonies performed at the initiation into the mysteries of Egypt, we know but little at present. They don't know. He's telling you the mysteries of Egypt. What did we just learn? What did we just learn, huh? That prehistoric America was the original Egypt, right? What else did we learn? Let's go back. America was known to the mystics as Atlantis. Yeah, what else did we learn? It was recovered. Egypt, when he got here. Masonry. We are not indebted to either ancient Egypt for either religion or masonry, but to America. And what? Where is Egypt? The original? Where's the original Egypt? In America. America was the original Egypt. All right, let's go back. Of the ceremonies performed at the initiation into the mysteries of Egypt, we know but little at present. We don't know what the ancient Americans were really doing. For the initiated were very careful to conceal these sacred rites. Herodotus tells that if any person divulged any part of them, he was thought to have called down divine judgment upon his head, and it was accounted unsafe to abide in the same house with him. He was even apprehended as a public offender and put to death. Still, on reading the visions of the book of Enoch / Thoth, what Enoch? There's two Enochs. And comparing them with what we know of the trials to which were subjected, the applicants for initiation into the greater mysteries of Eleusis and Egypt, and those of Xibalba, that's the underworld of the Maya, Xibalba. One can scarcely refrain from believing that under the title of visions, the author relates his experience at the initiation and what he learned in the mysteries before being converted to Christianity. That book is believed to have been written at the beginning of the Christian era, when under the yoke of the Roman emperors, the customs and religion of the Egyptians fell into the decadency, and the Christian bishops of Alexandria, such as George Theophilus, Cyril, the murderer of the beautiful, learned, and noble Hypatia, daughter of the mathematician Theon, persecuted the worshippers of Isis and Osiris, and converted their temples into Christian churches after defacing and whitewashing. Hey man, I didn't say it. Come on, man. Oh man, what did they do? Come on, man. What did they do? They defaced the temples and whitewashing the ancient sculptures that covered their walls. They whitewashed the people represented in these ancient temples, man. They were showing black folks, so-called Negro people. Kurimeo, why are you trying to blackwash history, man? Why are you trying to blackwash history, Kurimeo? They whitewashed the ancient sculptures in these temples, huh? Body bag for the illusion. Shout out to Drop, man. On which they painted rough images of saints. They painted what? They put saints? Oh, man. It may be that its author, although having embraced Christianity, still retained in his heart of hearts a strong love for the ancient institutions that were fast disappearing in the midst of the political and religious dissensions that were raging at the time. Fearing lest the learning of the priest of old and the knowledge he had acquired by his initiation into the mysteries should become lost, the dread of death being removed by the new order of things, he put for greater safety in the mouth of Enoch, as instructing his son what he had seen and learned in the secrecy of the temples. Let us hope that further discoveries in the ruins of the temples or in the tombs may put into our possession some papyrus whose contents will throw light on the subject and reveal these secrets. The Masonic objects found under the base of the obelisk, known as Cleopatra's Needle, now in Central Park, New York. Oh, it's in New York, huh? Why would they put that there? Or was it always there? We gotta believe them, right? Oh, they brought it over, blah, blah, they brought it over, Was it always there? Just like these buildings, they said, oh, they was built, it was founded, this building was founded 1836. Oh, really? You sure it wasn't there since the Middle Ages? In America? So-called Tartaria? So this Cleopatra's Needle, guys, if you never heard of it, you can Google it. It's literally in Central Park, New York. An obelisk. They supposedly got it from ancient Egypt, right? But now we know, right? What do we know? That prehistoric America was the original Egypt. So they got it from here. It is from here. You overstand, break the spells. Break the spells, guys. Are you overstanding? Not understanding, understanding. Know thyself. Know how great the history here is. So this Cleopatra's Needle showed that many of the symbols pertaining to the rites of modern Freemasonry were used in Egypt by building organizations and architects at least 1900 years ago. Were used in Egypt, huh? Oh, in America. Oh, you're talking about America. Okay, I get it. In Egypt, oh, prehistoric America was the original Egypt. Oh, okay. And although I do not agree with all the conclusions of Dr. Phantom, notwithstanding they are approved by some of the high masons at Cairo and Alexandria, I am ready to recognize many of the emblems and admit that they belong to the mysteries if their meaning anciently was not quite the same as we give them today. Yeah, Boston Commons, I know. And then you got the Bunker Hill Monument in Boston too. The reluctance of the Egyptians to admit strangers to the holy secret of their mysteries was for a very long time insuperable. However, they seem to have relaxed at rare intervals in favor of personages noted for their wisdom and knowledge. So they admitted the great philosopher Thales or Thales, who went to Egypt, America, right, to learn geometry and astronomy. He came here. Yeah, these ancient people from the Middle Ages, right? They're talking about America, guys. You gotta break the spell. You gotta get. I know it might be confusing a lot of you to picture that, but this is the true old world. They came here to learn geometry and astronomy about 587 years or 587 years before the Christian era. What? You see how long ago they're saying? Eumolpus, king of Eleusis, who when returning to his country, instituted the mysteries of that name in honor of the goddess Ceres, that presided over the crops and other fruits of the earth. All right, I'm glad they said that because Ceres is a corn deity. She's a corn deity. I showed that in my corn videos. Ceres is represented with corn, maize, guys. Orpheus, the celebrated Greek poet, obtained likewise the honor of the initiation and established the Orphic ceremonies, which according to Herodotus were observed alike by the Egyptians and by Pythagoras. 1 second. It must be remembered that Pythagoras, after being submitted to extreme severe ordeals to cause him to desist from his desire of being initiated, was on account of his firmness granted the privilege of initiation. Many of the rites and ceremonies were therefore brought from Egypt to Greece. Speaking of the Thesmophoria festivals in honor of Ceres, next in importance to the mysteries of Eleusis, Herodotus says, these rites were brought from Egypt into Greece by the daughters of Danaus. From Egypt, America, right? Into what? Greece? What Greece? And who brought them? The daughters of Danaus, Danaus is Danites. Danites, guys. Check out my Danite videos. Remember the mythology is, they say it a different way. They add these, they make it into like a fairy tale story, but it's real people who taught them to the pelagic women. But in the course of time, they fell into disuse, except among the Arcadians, who continued to preserve them. The Pelasgians had also initiated the inhabitants of Samothracia. They in turn taught the Athenians the mysteries of the Kabiri, Caribi, the Kabiri, the Caribi, the Caribs. From that, it results that if we desire to obtain an insight of the Egyptian mysteries, we must see what happened at the initiation into those of Greece. Oh, what happened here, guys? Hold on. Oh, they hating. They hating. Come on now. Come on. Uh-oh. What's going on here? One second, you see? 1 second, guys. We're gonna get this to work. What's up? What's up? What's up with this, huh? Oh, okay. I see why. My fault. There's an image here. That's a Mayan, right? These are just from the Maya sites, temples, right? No one could be admitted to the greater unless they had been purified at the lesser, and 1 year at the least had elapsed since they had become mistai, or initiated. Mistai, huh? The initiation to the greater mysteries when the mistai took the degree of ephoroi, that is, inspector, by being instructed in the secret rites, except a few reserved. For the priests alone was as follows. The candidate being crowned with myrtle, which was used instead of the acacia, was admitted by night into an immense building called the Mysticos Secos, that is, the mystical enclosure. At their entrance, they purified themselves by washing their hands in holy water, being at the same time admonished to present themselves with minds pure and undefiled, without which eternal cleanliness of the body would by no means be accepted. After this, the holy mysteries were read to them from a book called Petroma, because the book consisted of 2 stones fitly cemented together. I have discovered such stones last year. Listen, I have discovered the same exact stones last year in the mausoleum of High Pontiff Kai, okay, in the city of Chichen Itza in Yucatan. All right? Yeah, that image I was showing, Daisy, that's from a Mayan temple. That's what he's showing. Those are Mayan glyphs, okay? The priest who conducted the ceremonies was called Hierophantes. He proposed certain questions to which answers were returned in a set form. Then strange and amazing objects presented themselves. Sometimes the place they were and seemed to shake as if an earthquake was occurring, or whirled around and round as if it carried away as if carried away like in a tornado. The two stones, Noah, huh? Sometimes it appeared bathed in bright and resplendent light, and flames seemed to issue from the walls, threatening to consume the temple, and all of a sudden they were extinguished by invisible hands, and the most profound obscurity succeeded to the dazzling radiance. Flashes of lightning at intervals broke forth with extreme brilliancy, only to make the darkness more dark. When peal after peal of thunder caused the building to shake to its very foundations, these were succeeded by loud cries for help and laments of persons in great agony, soon to be replaced by the most frightful noises and belongings and terrible apparitions. The nerves of the applicants were tried to the utmost and required to be strung by the most indomitable will and moral as well as physical courage to enable them to withstand to the last such awful trials. Hey, Mississippi, I sound that stuffy? Yeah, don't worry. I do way more than green tea and lemon. I got my potions, my herbal medicinal potions, right? All the faint-hearted were invariably rejected and refused admission to the next degree, the epoptia, or inspection. Powerful narcotic drugs were administered to the timorous that plunged them into the death-like sleep, from which they emerged with but confused recollections, if not entire forgetfulness, of the terrible scenes they had witnessed, and which they believed to be produced by some frightful dream or dreadful nightmare. I will now quote from the book of Enoch, chapter 14, verse 12. I saw a spacious habitation built with stones of crystals. All right, this is from the book of Enoch. Listen. Was he describing a temple of one of the Maya temples? Listen. I saw a spacious habitation built with stones of crystals. The roof had the appearance of agitating stars and flashes of lightning. Flames burnt around its walls, its portals blazed with fire. This dwelling was hot as fire, cold as ice. Chapter 16, verse 1, Book of Enoch. They raised me up into a certain place where there was the appearance of burning fire, and when they pleased, they assumed the likeness of men. Verse 3. And I beheld the receptacles of light and of thunder at the extremities of the place. There was a bow of fire and arrows in their quiver, a sword of fire and every species of lightning. Chapter 21, verse 4. Then I passed to another terrific place, verse 5, where I beheld the operation of a great fire blazing and glittering, in the midst of which there was a division. Columns of fire struggled together to the end of the abyss, and deep was their descent. Verse 6. This was the place of suffering. Those who resisted to the last the trials of the autopsia, as the initiation was called, were then dismissed with these three words: Honex Pax, which, strange to say, have no meaning in the Greek language. What does it mean in so-called Greek? They don't even know. Captain Wilford, in his essay on Egypt, ancient America, right, says they correspond to the words Kancha Pancha, which the Brahmins pronounce every day to announce to the devotees that the religious ceremonies are over. They have been translated: retire, retire, profane, corresponding to the ite missa est of the Catholic Church. These words are not Sanskrit. Listen, these words are not Sanskrit, but Maya. These are Mayan words they've been using. These are Mayan words they've been using in these rituals, initiations, and ceremonies, Masonic. Honex, Omon, Panex, go stranger, scatter, are vocables of the language of the ancient inhabitants of Yucatan, still spoken by their descendants, the aborigines of that country. All right? They were probably used by the priests of the temples, whose sumptuous and awe-inspiring ruins I have studied during the 14 years to dismiss the members of their mystic societies, among which we find the same symbols that are seen even today in the temples of Egypt, as in the Masonic lodges. I will endeavor to show you that the ancient sacred mysteries, the origin of Freemasonry, consequently, date back from a period far more remote than the most sanguine students of its history ever imagined. I will try to trace their origin, step by step, all right, to this continent which we inhabit, to America, from where the Maya colonists transported their ancient religious rites and ceremonies not only to the banks of the Nile, but to those of the Euphrates and the shores of the Indian Ocean, not less than 11,500 years ago. All right, 11,500 years ago? Oh man, we about to get some drop. We about to get some drop. But let us return to the mysteries of Eleusis and the trials to which the Mistai were subjected to try their fitness to become Ephoroi. Masons, no doubt, recognize several of the ceremonies that took place at their initiation into the craft. If Freemasonry had not its origin in the ancient sacred mysteries, how could these rites have found their way into it? The Ephoroi were now prepared for the third degree, the Epopteia, the most sacred of all, and this, the Epoptai, or inspectors of themselves, were placed in presence of the gods who were supposed to appear to the initiated. Proclus, a philosopher disciple of the divine Plato, in his commentaries on the Republic of his master says, in all initiations and mysteries, the gods exhibit themselves under many forms and appear in a variety of shapes. Sometimes their unfigured light is held forth to view. Sometimes this light appears under a human form, and sometimes it assumes a different shape. And again, in his commentaries on the first Alcibiades, in the most holy of the mysteries, before the god appears, the impulsions of certain terrestrial demons become visible, alluring the initiated from undefiled good to matter. Then all the seductions that human mind can imagine to excite the passions were placed within the grasp of those who inspired or aspired to become epoptai. They were invited to freely give way to the voluptuousness, to the enjoyment of all kinds of mundane pleasures before they renounced them forever. Nothing that could possibly entice applicants to fall from their state of moral and physical purity was omitted. All that could be done to induce them to yield to temptation was resorted to if in a moment of weakness they allowed their senses to obtain the mastery over their reason. Woe to them! For before they could realize their position, before they had time to recall their scattered thoughts, the bright surroundings disappeared as by magic. They were plunged in the most dense obscurity. The ground gave way under their feet, and they were precipitated into a deep abyss, from which if they escaped with their life, they never did with their reason. It says here, Theon of Smyrna, in his work Mathematica, divides the mysteries into 5 parts: the purification, the reception of sacred rites, the epopteia or reception, and the sign of the revelation, the building of the head and fixing of the crowns, and 5, the friendship and interior communication with God, the last and most awful of all the mysteries, even though he should be the first. Hawa. There is no mysteries without Hawa. It is supposed the prophet Ezekiel alludes to these initiations when he speaks to the or of the abominations committed by the idolatrous ancients of the house of Israel in the dark. Every man in the chambers of his imagery. Here again, I will quote from the book of Enoch, chapter 22. From thence I proceeded to another spot where I saw in the west a great and lofty mountain, a strong rock, and four delightful places. A mountain, a strong rock, huh? Are we talking about a pyramid? Chapter 14, verse 14. Then I went to another habitation, more spacious than the former. Every entrance which was open before me was erected in the midst of a vibrating flame. Verse 18. Its floor was on fire. Above were lightning and agitated stars, while its roof exhibited a blazing fire. The brilliant sun. Verse 24. A fire of great extent continued to rise up before him. It is said that the ordeal through which the candidates were obliged to pass previous to admission into the Egyptian mysteries were even more severe, and that Pythagoras, wise philosopher as he was, had a narrow escape from it. The priest alone could arrive at a thorough understanding of the mysteries. So sacred were their secrets, held that many of the members of the sacerdotal order even were not admitted to a participation of them, but those alone who proved themselves deserving of the honor. Since Clement of Alexandria tells us, the Egyptians neither entrusted their mysteries to everyone nor degraded the secrets of divine matters by disclosing them to the profane, reserving them for the heir apparent to the throne, and for such of the priests as excelled in virtue and wisdom. It wasn't for everybody. From all we can learn on the subject, the mysteries consisted of two kinds, the greater and the lesser, divided into many classes. The candidate for initiation had to be pure, his character without blemish. He was commanded to study such lessons as tended to purify the mind. Great was the honor of ascending to the greater mysteries, and it was difficult to attain to it. An inscription of a high priest at Memphis says, Mr. Samuel Birch states that he knew the arrangements of the earth and those of Heliopolis and Memphis, that he had penetrated the mysteries of every sanctuary, that nothing was concealed from him, that he adored God and glorified him in all his works, and that he hid in his breast all that he had seen. Had he not kept his secret so carefully concealed, no doubt he would have told us that one of the initiations, the figure of the god Osiris, in whose honor the mysteries were celebrated, and whose name the initiates did not dare pronounce, appeared to the candidate as it did at Heliopolis to Pianchi, king of Ethiopia. Now remember all the Osiris statues they found in the Americas, right? One of them in Salvador, Osiris and Isis statues, literally with Egyptian hieroglyphics and everything, looking just like Osiris and Isis in their so-called Egyptian gear. All right. At a later period, when the ancient customs had become relaxed owing to the invasion of the country by foreigners, and to the government passing from the hands of native rulers to those of Persian, what Persian? Elamites, Elamites, sons of Shem, of Greek or Roman governors, many besides The priests came to be admitted to the lesser mysteries, but all had to pass through the different grades and conform to the prescribed rules, as in the case of Thales, Eumolpus, Orpheus, Pythagoras, Plato, Herodotus, and others. Din, 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 din. Din, 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 din. I know you guys are going to be disappointed right now. But we're going to continue part 2 tomorrow, guys. I want people to actually sit down and hear this. It's already been an hour and a half. And again, this is a long book. We're going to do many parts. And he's just going to keep going and getting deeper. All right? Absorb the info. We got a little cool little history of, you know, Freemasonry around the world and around these so-called old world cultures. And he hinted that he's going to tell you that it originated with the Maya or in America. We're about to get to some good drop. We're about to get to some good drop. Remember, America is Atlantis. And that prehistoric America was the original Egypt or Egoland prior to the mighty suspension. When they came here, guys, they found the promised land. Yeah, America, known to the mystics as Atlantis. They recovered ancient Egypt and the promised land. The promised land. The promised land. America, the true old world. Should I do this tomorrow? Should we continue part 2 tomorrow? Do you guys want another video? What's up? You know, I got this book in my Patreon page for anybody that wants to read ahead, or you can just find it yourself. If I don't see it posted, I'll probably repost it just in case, because it's an old post. But I know it's in my Patreon. But I will be sharing it again just in case. All right. A lot of these books I'm reading are on my Patreon page. Okay, that's a good one, Jackie. That sounds good. That sounds good. Let me make sure to write that down. Make sure to copy that right now. Thanks for the... Okay, I already found it. I'm quick, guys. I find sources like... Especially when you give me a specific name, I'll find them. That's what I do. That's what I do. That's what I do. Uh-oh, future video. You see how it's borrow unavailable? We can't read this on archive.org. We can't read this on archive.org, but I'll get my hands on it. You'll see. I'll find it. We got some drop coming. Shout out to Jackie for sharing the drop. The Shaman's Secret, the Lost Resurrection Teachings of the Ancient Maya. All right. Appreciate that. And I appreciate all of you tuning in again tonight, making the time to be here, read along with me. We just got a little feet wet with this book. We're about to get more deeper with it. I already created the playlist, Sacred Mysteries Among the Mayas and the Quiche. That's what it's called. We're going to add all the parts to that playlist so you can watch them in order whenever you like. Female Noah, she said, no ritual, no sacrifice. I'm just being. Drop your hijacks. Yeah. Drop the hijacks. Dodge the hijacks. Thank you for tuning in, guys. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. A lot of you guys get unsubscribed. Make sure you're subscribed again. And if you're not subscribed yet, make sure to subscribe. Hey, come on, man. Support. We work hard here. And make sure you're checking every day, because notifications don't be going out to a lot of people, guys. Make sure you're checking at least every day. I mean, at least every other day, But if you can't check every day, check my channel every day. I'm dropping almost one, a video a day nowadays. Much love to all you guys. Appreciate you guys. Major drop. Pura vida, mi gente. Pura vida, mi gente. Hold on, let's see what we're gonna go out with. Just go out with this song. All right. Thank you guys. Wow.